What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It's time to continue my 2023 schedule preview and projected records for the 2023 college football season. And we continue them with the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Here's the schedule last year for this Wake Forest team. The overall record for this team going 8-5 overall in 2022 and 7-5 in the regular season. This is a team in 2021 that made the ACC championship game. And then, of course, last year was a step-back year. Of course, they didn't have Sam Hartman in the first game of the year, and that kind of hurt them, to maybe have a good season. And we thought after that Clemson loss they would probably start to rebound a little bit. But you look at the stretch there from October to, November. We'll get to that in just a minute. You look at who they played in the non-conference. They played VMI, Vanderbilt, and Liberty. That was a pretty tough non-conference schedule. And then, of course, Army here on October the 8th. It was a pretty tough non-conference schedule with Vanderbilt on there. Also Liberty and Army. Those are a pretty good group of five teams. Or actually, Army's a Power 5 team. But, Liberty actually a pretty good group of five team from last year. So the non-conference schedule, a little bit tough from last year for Wake Forest. Like I said, that tough stretch there with October 29th against Louisville all the way to North Carolina. That was a really tough stretch there from Louisville to North Carolina. And then, of course, Duke here on November 26th. So, yeah, overall the schedule kind of got tougher down the stretch for Wake Forest. But looking ahead now to 2023, Sam Hartman is gone now for Wake Forest, transferred to Notre Dame. So, going to be a kind of a, rebuild year for Wake Forest. I'm not saying they're going to be that bad, but I think it's going to be a rebuild year for the quarterback position. Let's go ahead now to 2023. Here's a schedule for Wake Forest heading into the 2023 season. And you look at who they play in the non-conference. They'll play Elon, Vanderbilt, Old Dominion on the road. And then they'll play Notre Dame as well here. So a non-conference schedule, a little bit tougher than it was last year. They had Liberty and Army on that schedule, and so did Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is back here on September the 9th. They'll get this one at home. And then Old Dominion, they pulled off a huge upset last year against a, Power 5 team. So you kind of expect Old Dominion to be a really tough game. That will be on the road. So but that will be an interesting non-conference game there with Vanderbilt. And then they'll play Notre Dame here. Obviously, we talked about Sam Hartman going over there to Notre Dame. So, yeah, that's kind of emotional for Wake Forest. But, all in all, the non-conference schedule a lot tougher than it was last year. And, again, no divisions in the ACC this year. So, let's go game by game now for this Wake Forest team. So, they'll kick off the season with 3 non-conference games here with Elon, Vanderbilt, and Old Dominion. They'll get Old Dominion on the road. And like I just mentioned, Old Dominion last year pulled off a huge upset against Virginia Tech. Kind of didn't expect that one to happen, but obviously Vanderbilt will be another tough non-conference game. Good news is they'll get this one at home. And then they'll open up ACC play with Georgia Tech here on September the 23rd. They'll get their bye week rather early, right here after the Georgia Tech game. And it's a pretty good spot for a bye week. They'll play on the road at Clemson. This will be on October the 7th, and then they'll play Virginia Tech here on October the 14th. So you got back-to-back road games here with, Clemson and Virginia Tech. Those are not really tough back-to-back road games. Virginia Tech wasn't that good last year. So I don't really kind of expect to be a really tough back-to-back road game here, but Clemson obviously will be their toughest road game there on October the 7th. And then they'll play Pittsburgh after that on October the 21st. Then they'll play Florida State here on October the 28th. A team that has a lot of production coming back. Then they'll play Duke on the road. This is another tough road game. This will be a weeknight game, so it's going to be on a Thursday night. So looking forward to that matchup. Then they'll play NC State here on November the 11th. Then they'll play back-to-back road games here to end out the month of November with Notre Dame and Syracuse. I think these are their toughest back-to-back road games. You got Notre Dame on the road. Possibly a team that's going to be probably a playoff contender. You never know. Syracuse, you never know about them. They could be a sneaky good team in the ACC this year. But both of these games are pretty tough places to play. But all in all, the schedule really tough for Wake Forest. I think this is still a pretty good team without Sam Hartman perhaps. But maybe this will be a step-back year. It probably is just based off of the schedule perhaps. But let's get now to the projection here for this Wake Forest team. And again, this is the scale I use for my projections if it's a 1% game. This is the percentage that Wake Forest has no chance of winning all of these games. 20% games. These will be games where Wake Forest is going to be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs, 40%. In the yellow, these are games where Wake Forest is going to be about a touchdown of an underdog. 50-50 games, these will stay in the white. Games where they can go either way, 60%. In the purple, these are games where Wake Forest is going to be favored by about a touchdown. 80% games in the blue, these are games where Wake Forest is going to be favored by a couple touchdowns. And then 90% games, these are games where Wake Forest is going to be favored by more than 3 touchdowns. And we always start with the green games. We're going to start with the easy wins here for this Wake Forest team. And I think you got 2 of those on the schedule. You got Elon here and Old Dominion. You got one there in August, and then you got another one here in September. Old Dominion, I think, is going to be a pretty tough one, based off of where they were last year, beating Virginia Tech out of the ACC. Maybe they could pull off another upset in the ACC. You'd never know. It could happen. You never know what can happen in college football. I think Wake Forest in both of these games, they should be big favorites heading into both of these games in the green. They will take care of business in that first game on August the 31st. And I don't know about Old Dominion, though. I don't think that really is a blowout, but, we'll see how it goes. But as of right now, I do got it in the green. All right, how about the games where they're going to be favored by a couple touchdowns or some purple games? Do I have any blue games on here? I don't have any blue games for Wake Forest, but I do have 3 games in the purple. I got Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, both at home, and then Virginia Tech on the road. I think Vanderbilt, is a pretty tough one to call. That could be a 50-50 game by the time we do those predictions in the month of May. But as of right now, I'm going to put this one in the purple, just based off of where Vanderbilt was last year. I mean, I don't think they'll be favored by a couple touchdowns, though, in this game. I think Vanderbilt will probably give them a little bit of trouble heading into this Week 2 game. And then Georgia Tech, based off of where they were last year, they're kind of similar to Vanderbilt, with the record they had last year. So I'm kind of expecting this one to be a close game for a little while. But I think Wake Forest will still be a little bit favorites heading into this game as well. And then they'll play Virginia Tech here. I think, based off of where Virginia Tech was last year, I'm going to put this one in the purple as well. And I think all 3 of these games, I think Wake Forest will be, a touchdown favorite perhaps. But as of right now, this is how it came out to be in the purple. It could change, like I said, to a 50-50 game by the time we do those predictions. All right, how about the games now where Wake Forest is going to be an underdog in? Games, where they're going to have maybe a chance to win it. Maybe some games you don't have a chance to win it. I don't have any red games on this schedule for Wake Forest, but I do have a orange game on that schedule. I actually got 2 of those orange games on here. I got Clemson and Notre Dame. I think these 2 games in the orange are going to be pretty tough road games here for Wake Forest. I don't think they really have a good shot to win them, but, like I said, they could switch to a yellow game by the time we do those predictions. But, without Sam Hartman, it makes it a little bit tougher. I think Clemson and Notre Dame are the really toughest road games on here on this schedule, especially with Notre Dame early or in the late part of November. That's always kind of brutal. And then you got to play Clemson on the schedule, so yeah. And you also have to play Florida State on the schedule as well. So that kind of makes it a lot tougher for this Wake Forest team. It's really hard to project their record as well, and it's also hard. It's going to be hard when we predict them as well. But these are the 2 games where I think Wake Forest will be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs. We go to the games now in the yellow, games where Wake Forest is going to be about a touchdown of an underdog, a heavy underdog as well, I should say. I think I got 3 of those on the schedule. Pittsburgh, Florida State, and NC State. Based off of where these teams were last year, I had to put all 3 of these games in the yellow. Pittsburgh was decent last year, but they weren't quite that good enough. Florida State, obviously that's a yellow game for me, but it could switch to a 50-50 game. I really see all 3 of these games switching to 50-50 games by the time we do those predictions. I'm saying as of right now, though, I think this is all 3 of these games are yellow games for this Wake Forest team as of right now. But, like I said, it could switch to 50-50 games by the time we do those predictions. It's really too early to tell of what these teams are going to look like. And also, we're, coming up to spring practice as well. So maybe after spring, we'll start to get to know a lot more about the rosters and everything and who's staying as well. But the rest of the games here for Wake Forest on the schedule, Duke and Syracuse, I think both of these are 50-50 games, games where they can go either way. Duke is obviously a weeknight game. That will be on a Thursday night. And then you got Syracuse here on the road to end things out. Both of these places are pretty tough places to play. I mean, these were, some surprise teams from last year. Duke was definitely one of the most surprised teams from last year. And then you had Syracuse, who was a decent surprise. They weren't really that surprising, but they were just a decent surprise. So, but I think both of these games here on the road, Wake Forest, Duke and Syracuse, are both 50-50 games. Let's now get to the projected record for this Wake Forest team. So if you look at the schedule and also look at the games that they're favored in and also the games that they're underdogs in, if you count the 50-50 games as well. Like I said, this is not my official prediction. This is simply a projection based on this schedule. You get an overall projected record for this Wake Forest team at 5-7. That's how the 5-7 is pretty much, not my official prediction. It's simply a projection based on this schedule. It's a pretty tough schedule. Look at it. You got Vanderbilt out of the non-conference. You got Clemson as well. You got, Notre Dame on that schedule out of the non-conference. And then you got, these tough road games, with Duke and Syracuse. And then you got Florida State and Pittsburgh. These are all tough games on this schedule. It's not really going to be an easy year for Wake Forest, especially with Sam Hartman gone now. I think this is kind of a step-back year for Wake Forest. But as of right now, the overall projected record is 5-7. But like I said, we could switch it around. I think best-case scenario as of right now would be 6-6. Worst-case scenario would probably be like 4-8. I think, maybe you can predict them at 7-5 by the time we do those predictions. But like I said, those will still come in the month of May. But that's my overall projected record for this Wake Forest team is 5-7. Let me guys know what you think about this Wake Forest team. What do you think their worst case scenario is? What do you think their best case scenario will be? Let me know down in the comments below. And stay tuned here for more sports content on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.